So thank you so much for tuning into this online event. This is the February installment of the Susitna River Coalition's Winter Speaker Series. And first of all, we'd like to thank our partners with the Chase Community Council, the Talkeetna Community Council, the Jessica Stevens Foundation, and all of the generous individual donors that make things like this possible. On the screen here, I am Margaret Stern. I am the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the Susitna River Coalition. You'll also see Melissa as the Director, and we will be here supporting Mike and Paula, who we are so happy to have here to speak with us today. They have lived off the road system in the Susitna River Watershed for coming up on 28 years and have had a pretty impressive life out there, starting out as a small family fishing and hunting lodge, and then transitioning to a successful, pretty logistically incredible peony farm. So we are so excited to have them. I know that they are who you are here to see, so I'm going to hand it on over to them. Thanks, Mike and Paula.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. We're going to try and cram 27 plus years into 30 minutes. So here we go. First off, most of you out there, you're sharing with us what we're coming up on as our 40-year anniversary. And what I mean is this week, 40 years ago, Paula and I were in Tampa, Florida at MacDill Air Force Base. We were both in the Army. We got up that morning, we put on our jungle fatigues, we grabbed our bags, we went out, we got on a C-141 Air Force transport plane, and we flew 9 hours to Fairbanks, Alaska. And we went from 84 degrees above to 52 degrees below during that time. And that was our initiation to Alaska. So 40 years ago this week, we did that. Now, looking back, you would think that maybe that would have been enough. But we were up here to do an exercise that was part of our job in the military at the time. And 2 years later, in 1983, we actually got reassigned here. And once we got here, they couldn't get us to leave. So our first exposure was 1981. We moved here in 1983 to Alaska. And we've been here ever since. And I don't think there's no place else we'd rather be, you know. So anyway, moving here. We came here in 1983. Our daughter was a year old. She was born in Florida. And we proceeded to learn what it was like to be Alaskans. We had no clue. We had lived the last 5 years in Florida.
At this point, we lived in Peters Creek, and Mike was still in the Army in Anchorage. And I was a stay-at-home mommy.
Yeah, so we came to Alaska. In '83, we thought we'd buy a house, you know, we'd settle in. We found you couldn't find a house. So we had to build a house, and we settled in Peters Creek out in the Chugiak area. And I commuted to Elmendorf every day during that time, and ended up spending 11 years between Fort Richardson and Elmendorf. During that time, we had three more. We had three sons born at Elmendorf Hospital, which no longer exists. You know, we just proceeded to live our lives and learn how to be Alaskans. Time came that in 1993, I was selected to go to the Sergeant Major's Academy, and that meant a move to El Paso, Texas, and we just couldn't bring ourselves to do that. So we decided that that was the time to retire. So we put in paperwork for retirement in '93 to retire in '94, and we started trying to figure out what our life was going to be in Alaska as Alaskans outside of the military. And we started looking for some recreational property. You want?
Yeah, so we had, when the kids were little, they were very tiny. We had a cab over camper until the boys were all born. And then that got to be too small, obviously. So we were looking for a weekend place to rent or to own, so that we could go away on the weekend and get away from town. Luckily we had friends that had planes, and I saw a picture of, this was an old homestead, and I saw a picture of the homestead from the lake, and it was listed with a real
remote
estate,
property,
yeah, remote
realtor.
property realtor. And so a friend of ours said, we'll fly you out. So we flew out on the 1st of June in 1983, and was the
93.
93, I'm sorry, in 93. And we spent the day here. We walked down to the creek to fish, and we just hung around here. And it was an old abandoned homestead, basically. There was cabins here. Everything was very overgrown. Even the 1st of June, all of the weeds and all the things that grow here. But we spent the day, and we just kind of wandered around and enjoyed the sunshine. And we left that day, and we didn't really talk about it. And a couple days later, Mike turned to me and said, logistically, I just don't think we can do it. And I looked at him and said, this is where we need to raise our kids. This is where they need to be. This is where our life is. And he looked at me and said, okay, we'll figure it out then.
That was a jaw dropper. I never expected that.
So we had 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl, and our twin boys are both high functioning autistic. And I worked with the school system. They went to school at Chugiak and worked with special need kids. And the school is wonderful. The teachers were wonderful, but the system that we have built in the United States is not necessarily the best for special need kids. So the writing was on the wall. We decided that they would be better homeschooled, and what better place to homeschool than here, and let them have their independent life and grow as good as they can. So they were a huge reason that we moved here. So we moved here. This is where my part is still. We moved here. Mike retired from the Army after we decided we weren't going to go to Texas. So lock, stock, and barrel, the first week of June in 1994, we had 12. It was our military move. So the Army had to pay for our retirement move. So we had 12 otter loads from Ketchum's Air Service and a beaver that carried all of our worldly goods in a couple of days and moved it all out here. Luckily, it was very sunshiny that month, and it was very warm, and we absolutely had no idea what we were doing. We'd never lived off the road system. We'd never lived without running water. At the time, our youngest boys were 6, and Lee was 8, and Megan was 12. So at that point, we figured they were pretty much able to dress themselves, so we were all good. Now I look back at those pictures, and I think how young they were, but we homeschooled our kids with Alyeska Central School in Juneau, which used to be the state-run homeschool. Now that's gone. And that worked out really well. The biggest thing with living here with the kids and the family is the logistics. One of the reasons, once we looked at this place and we fell in love with it and we knew that this is where our heart and soul was, we still thought, well, we should look at other places just to make sure this is where we want to be. So we did look at a couple other places, and it was obvious that this was it. One of the deciding factors too was that it was only a 25-minute plane ride from town. So if there was an emergency with kids, with accidents, with little boys and broken bones kind of thing, we could fly to town without too much effort. And I always say that God knew how much I could handle because none of those emergencies ever happened. We had a few stitches and a few fly-ins to town, but no huge emergencies. So the years when the kids were growing, we learned how to live here. If we had known what we were doing, we probably wouldn't have done it. If we had known all the logistical problems, all the logistical challenges, all of the things that were going to happen, we probably would have been too scared and not done it. But luckily we did.
We were clueless, to be quite frank. We were absolutely clueless. We thought we knew what we were doing. We had an idea, and we almost from day one, when the airplanes brought all of our things out, we didn't even know where we wanted to put them. Our home had been an abandoned homestead for a number of years, and we didn't have any place to put things. So we just piled them up in the middle of a clearing between cabins, and we tarped it. And when the last plane left, we looked around and realized for the first time what we had done. And we had this mountain of things that had been shipped out, by multiple airplanes sitting under a tarp. And we slowly realized that most of it we didn't need to begin with, but here it was. Now we had to find a place to put it all. And as Paula said, the weather fortunately was good, or we'd have been in real trouble. but that was it. The planes left, and all of a sudden it's the family. And I think that's probably for me, it was one of the most satisfying days I've ever experienced, because it was us. It was the family. We depended on each other. And I don't think we ever felt closer than that moment and since. So we proceeded to create EagleSong Lodge. And throughout the drainage at the time, in the early and mid 90s, the salmon fishing was phenomenal. Lower Susitna River, Alexander Creek drainage area, which we are in, was the earliest king salmon fishery in the Upper Cook Inlet region. There were lodges up and down that had existed for 30, 40, 50 years. It was a very vibrant and expanding community. There was a lot going on, but most of it evolved around fishing. For us to come in, we knew that we were, kind of the small underdog type. We were in a good position to do some unique fishing with salmon, rainbow trout, Arctic grayling, fly fishing. We had a fairly unique area, so we knew we could work with that. But at the same time, there were the larger, well-established lodges, well-financed, knew what they were doing. And so, we felt that we had that winter business was almost non-existent at that time. Dog mushing, snow machining, skiing, those kind of things weren't real dominant, in this area at the time. So we felt that we could develop that. One of the things we set out to do was we created a trail from here on Trail Lake, where we are, up to the top of Mount Susitna, Sleeping Lady. So we groomed a trail throughout the winter, and that was a huge draw for business. People could come here and they could snow machine up to the top of the mountain or ski or whatever. So that the winter business kind of filled in the void of our lack of experience, funding, and other things like that. So things went along fairly well. We were progressing. We were always moving forward. At the same time, like most people that live in the bush, you don't do one thing. We have always said that if you don't do it, no one will. And that's kind of how it goes. So most people that live in the bush are kind of a jack of all trade, and do a lot of different things to make a living. We built cabins for other people. We did freight hauling. I worked for a time up on the North Slope, part-time, in the oil fields. Those kind of things. Anywhere you could make a dollar was pretty much, what we did. And so we were spread all over the place at that time. And again, still learning how to live in the bush, how to deal with the snow. We had no idea that where we were at on the north base of Mount Susitna, we had no idea that the mountain effect snowfall that landed here. We average over 14 feet of snow in the winter. It usually starts in late October and it doesn't leave us until May. Right now, today, we're setting at 98.5 inches of measured snowfall so far. So it's snowfall so far. So it's a good winter, but it's a challenge. It's something to deal with every day. And we had no clue how to do that. So we made a lot of mistakes, but we had a lot of fun along the way as well.
And you learn as you go. You do what you got to do. The first year we were here, we had 12 feet of snow by Christmas. And every time it snowed, it seemed like it was 3 feet and 4 feet and 2 feet. And we'd just get that snow cleared out, and then it would do it again. So we were just like kind of deer in the headlights. What have we gotten ourselves into? But the rest of the time, like Mike said, the family was so close with the kids. They homeschooled and they were little, So you have Halloween and you have Christmas and you have these things and friends would come out at times, but it's not easy, as everybody that lives out knows. You have to snow machine or you have to fly. On Halloween, we would dress up and we would make a party of it. And usually Halloween was during freeze up, so nobody could come and go anyway. So we would have a party that day. Everybody would have costumes. We would have a special dinner. We would play games or watch a movie or whatever. And like I said, the kids were little, so I would have candy in my bedroom, and every once in a while I'd yell trick or treat, and I'd go in the bedroom and the kids would knock on the door and they'd open the door and get trick or treats. So you just kind of make the fun as you go along.
You have to be inventive. And as I think is probably already evident, it's all because of this lady here that most of this happened. I like to tell everybody, and they think it's a joke, but it's true. We had to homeschool the kids, and I started off as the principal and ended up as the janitor. Paula ended up doing, everything in regard to the kids. I think that their schooling taught them to be independent, reliable, set schedules, because they still had chores. We had chickens to take care of, and there was trail work to do and firewood and all these other things. So they learned to schedule their time, to be responsible. And I like to think that that's carried through and carried them on
Definitely
as they
has.
became adults.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so so there was this whole thing of just learning to live in the bush and what it was all about and the great adventure. And I told the kids in the beginning, I said, think of it as a grand camping trip. And I think that's carried through to today. Even when they come back, it's a great camping trip. But times change. We all of a sudden the invasion of northern pike, a non-native species that is prehistoric and dominated the drainage as time went along, and salmon runs started to diminish. Restrictions started to be imposed. We had to seasons shortened. We had to go to single hook, no bait. These things started to mount up eventually to the point where salmon fishing was shut down altogether. And what was a vibrant community all of a sudden was in trouble. Lodges shut down. More of us tried to gravitate to winter business, but it was difficult. It wasn't enough to sustain the community. And so lodges started to close. People started to leave. I equate it to, the company town where the factory shut down. People boarded up their businesses and their homes, and they left to find work because there was no way to make a living. And all of a sudden, what was a very active and vibrant community with new cabins being built and air taxis, dropping people off. Alexander Creek was just full of rafters, in the summertime, it just all stopped. And all of a sudden we started going backwards. And, we did what we could do over time. One of the things that all of us in the bush do is we tend to have a chainsaw in our hands almost every day, whether it's building cabins, clearing trail, cutting firewood. A chainsaw is a very integral part of our life. And so I started dinking around and carving things. And at first I called it custom firewood. And I'm not really artistic, but over time, I kept at it. And one day somebody visited the lodge and pointed to a bear that I thought looked like a pig and said, "Is that for sale?" And I said, "Well, sure." And they bought it. And all of a sudden I became a carver. And so, we started a business of wood carving, wood and antler carving, and our crafts. We spent over 10 years in the summertime at the Anchorage downtown market selling the things that we made. And we did quite well there. A tourist to Alaska liked what we did. And that became a dominant part of our business and our lives to make up for the loss of fishing.
But what that meant is that one of us started out with our daughter Megan, would leave on Friday or leave on Thursday, spend the weekend in town, and then fly back. Kids eventually went to college, went to school, left. So then that meant that I was doing that. And that gets old after a little while because you're going back and forth and back and forth. A lot of money with planes. Luckily, we have always had, this is our saving grace, has been that we have so many friends with planes that love us. And part of it is that we have a great place for planes to come to. So we have made a lot of friends since we've been here with that. But The market was great. It was really satisfying because there was a lot of people from the lower 48 that would come as tourists to Anchorage, and they wanted to take home that really cool piece of Alaskana. So it was satisfying to do that, but but it got old after a little bit.
So anyway, move things along then. So pike had an impact. We were losing our fishing. People were leaving. We were faced with the cold reality of, did we have a future here? What could we do? There's so little things, or there are so few things you can do to make a living in Bush, Alaska, and that's what we were facing. And so in 2009,
in 2009, I went to Washington. Our oldest son, Lee, is a mechanical engineer, and he lives in the Columbia River Gorge in Washington. And one of the biggest Christmas shows is in Portland, Washington.
Oregon.
Or Portland, Oregon. I'm sorry. So I actually went down in November to Washington, Oregon, and I stayed there not far from Lee, and I did shows there. I took a whole bunch of our burl bowls and carvings, and I flew down with all the stuff, and I did a bunch of shows, and I did this Christmas show, and we were trying to decide whether or not we were going to maybe in the wintertime do the market in the summer, and in the wintertime go down to low 48 and travel around and sell our handcrafted things. It was a total bomb. It was a total bomb. I sold almost nothing and realized that our market for our goods and our handcrafted Alaskana stuff was in Alaska. There really wasn't a market for that other places. That's not what people were looking for. Horribly discouraging, horribly expensive trip, very discouraging, but it was definitely a turning point for us. Where do you want to take over? So I was in Washington. Our daughter Megan was in Antarctica working. Our son Micah was in Greece going to school. My brother, who worked with us at that time, lived and worked with us at that time, was in Africa working with Dr. Jack Hickel. And Cody was in Anchorage and Lee was in Washington. So Mike was here alone home for a couple of months with just him and the dog and the cat and the chickens. And he happened to watch TV.
So she's gone from October till just before Christmas. So we're in freeze up. There's nobody coming or going. I'm alone. So one night I come in after probably moving snow, and I sat down and I turned on the television and I turned it to PBS. And there was a journalism student from the University of Alaska, Fairbanks, interviewing a professor. And I stopped to watch it because Paula's sister was in Fairbanks going to school at that time. And I thought, well, maybe this is one of her instructors. So I stopped there for a moment. And the interview was on the discovery of how well peonies, the flower peonies, grow in Alaska. And I started listening. And it's one of those things where, you know, they say if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. Well, that was where I was. I thought, this is not possible. You know, and the more I listened, the more intrigued I became. And when that piece was over, I got online and I started researching the stuff that the university had generated. I started looking at other research, University of Kansas, and anything that I could get my hands on. I thought, can somebody really grow peonies in Alaska? Is that really a farming opportunity? Paula comes home. You know, we're discouraged, total bust of the carving stuff, you know, and I go, what do you think about becoming peony farmers? And I thought she was probably just going to think I'd been along way too long, and that, you know, but she said, yeah, well, you know, so
why not at this point?
Yeah, let's do it. And so we've always been adventurous, I guess. You know, it's, you know, our kind of our saying is anything but ordinary, and so this was definitely out of the ordinary. And so we did our research. We developed a business plan. We went to U.S. Department of Agriculture. We proposed our plan to them. They said, yeah, it looks good to us. We'll back you. And so the next thing we know, March of 2010.
Yep. March 2010.
We walk in a bulldozer 47 miles over the snow.
From Deska Landing.
From Willow area.
Yep. So Willow area. Took 2 days.
And then we helicoptered in a tractor. We started clearing land. We ordered 5,000 peony roots from a farm in Vermont. Those got flown up. out here and in the cold and the bugs and the mud and
By the first, well, and we started. So when we got the helicopter to bring the tractor out, and when we drove the dozer out that spring, we had woods is what we had.
We had forest.
We had a
no
forest.
Cleared
There was
land.
no cleared land. So
Detail.
So we started as soon as, well, before the muck got away, because there was a couple of stuck tractor moments, but we started clearing immediately, and by September we had probably 3 or 4 acres cleared that we planted our first 5,000 fields.
So by that fall, we were farmers. We were peony farmers. So it went from a concept in December of 2009 to reality by September of 2010. So we had 5,000 roots in the ground. The following year, we put in another 5,000 roots, and we haven't looked back. Today, we are one of the larger peony farms in the state. We've got 14,000 plus roots in the ground now, and we generate cut flowers that we sell throughout the U.S. and parts of Canada, and have made some sales into the foreign markets, into Asia and such. We have created, I don't know what we've created, but we became farmers. Yeah. We became farmers, and it has turned out to be what I think is a good move.
It's not boring. It's never boring.
Life
is never boring. One of the best parts that we've realized with farming, peonies are beautiful. I have peonies in both my families growing up, not commercially, but always around. Our kids, of course, grew up and left and have gone on to their own lives mostly. But we have woofers. We have worldwide organization for organic farmers. So woofing is a volunteer program. The woofers sign up all over the world, and the farms sign up all over the world, and you meet online and you decide you want to come there. So we have young people, mostly college age students, from all over the world. This last year, because of COVID, it was just the United States. They come and spend the summer and work with us. So now I have children all over the world that are everywhere. So wherever we go, we can visit our kids. But we get to see all these young people who, most of them grow up in cities and they have no idea what a farm is or any piece or part of a farm. And they not only get to live here, which is an awesome place to live, and we act as a family when they're here. They're all part of the family. But they get to interact with each other, and they meet people from all over the world and spend the time together. And it's just a wonderful experience for everybody. It's great.
So, it's been kind of write the rules as you go. There was no handbook for us, and there has been no handbook on how to raise peonies and create a peony business in Alaska. It is a relatively new industry, a little over 12, 13 years old right now. So we've just kind of had to learn as we go. The flower industry itself is evolving, like many things. The Amazon effect on brick and mortar operations. The floral industry is the same thing. It's going from the wholesalers buying bulk flowers and then distributing to florists, that kind of thing, to online sales of 1-800-Flowers and Pro Flowers and all these kind of things. So you have e-commerce now that is taking over, and that has forced us to reevaluate as we go along as well. And for us, it's actually been a benefit in that we've come in just like we did when we came here. We moved here and trying to compete with the established lodges. We're trying to compete with the established flower farms and wholesalers and florists and all. And e-commerce is in here now, and it's kind of upending the world, and it gives us a little window to kind of break into it. So we realized that this evolution is taking place. So we opened up our packhouse operations at Anchorage International Airport. So today we harvest our flowers. We put them into walk-in coolers that are powered by solar. 97% of the power that we consume on the farm is solar generated now. We have 2 walk-in coolers that we chill our flowers. We put them on small planes, mostly the air taxis that are flying overhead every day. that are carrying tourists and anglers out fishing. They come back empty, so we fill those planes with flowers. They fly back to Anchorage. We take them to our pack house operations at Anchorage International, and there we do the marketing, packaging, and shipping of our flowers. So theoretically, we can pick a flower and we can have it anywhere in the United States in 48 hours. And that's from our little operation in the middle of nowhere. So that's where we operate now, or we have. That's what we were developing. And then COVID.
Yeah, well, first of all, communications. We're talking right now over satellite. We've been here for 27 years. And when we first started out, our only communication was a two-way radio.
Two-way radio.
Phone. And then we had cell phones, and we had a cell bag phone. And every time the communications world says we're going to upgrade, that meant for us in the bush, it downgraded. So our bag phones got thrown out. And then we had all these different iterations. Now all of our communications is over a satellite, our telephone, everything. We used to have MTA for quite a while. They upheld their bush people living, and then they decided that was too expensive. So
communications, all these kind of, we have very little infrastructure. We have to do most for ourselves. We don't have fire. We don't have roads. We don't have schools. We had telephone for a while, and even that's gone now. So we're operating over satellite. We're downlinking right now to Eugene, Oregon, to everybody. So communications was really the only infrastructure we had, and even that has been a struggle. So there are things, we had to be creative. We've always had to be creative, but that's kind of the fun part of everything too. And we're really we're running out of time fast, cramming 27 years into 30 minutes. We've had, we've gone through, earthquakes, volcanoes, snowstorms, floods, invasive species. We talked about the northern pike destroying our salmon runs. We have invasives now, Elodia, which is a plant that is threatening our lakes and streams. And we have spruce bark beetle infestation that has just devastated our spruce forests. Killing thousands and thousands of trees over the last 2, 3, 4 years. These kind of things just seem to be never ending, but you continue to evolve. And then we hit 2020 and we think, well, this is going to be a good year. The plants are looking good. We've got our procedures down. We've got our pack house operating at the airport. All of these things are going well. We've got a good crew of people that come in and it's reliable. And then COVID hits. And now what do? So we scramble and we basically, again, we totally reinvent ourselves. We closed down the pack house operations at Anchorage because we need to create a COVID-free bubble that we can harvest flowers, box them, and ship them out to people. And instead, florists were considered non-essential. And most of the florist shops are mom and pop operations. They shut down. When they shut down, the wholesalers shut down because they didn't have that network of florists to sell to. Their weddings were shut down. Conventions and events weren't happening. Funerals, you couldn't even go to a funeral. So our industry just collapsed almost overnight. So we thought about it and we started developing a subscription program. And today we push a subscription program that runs nationally, and we ship boxes of peonies to consumers' doors. The one positive thing that came out of COVID was people became very comfortable with having things delivered to their door.
And ordering online.
Ordering online. So that's what we've gone to. So we now rely on social media and overnight delivery through FedEx to our customer's door. And so more and more of our operation now happens here on the farm, off the road system, where we have a COVID-free bubble that we have created.
And that's the plan for this summer too.
Yeah, things are still, up in the air. We don't know where they're going at the moment, so that's what we rely on. So we just continue to adapt. And I don't know, I guess that kind of keeps us young, to some degree. Can make you old, but on the other hand, it can keep you young.
Or foolish, I don't know which.
But I think what some of the people here joining us tonight might be interested in as well is the future of the Susitna Valley. We're fortunate to live in one of the most beautiful places on earth. We learned early on that, we had tourists paying money to come here. Well, what better place to live than a place that people are willing to spend money to go to? And it is a beautiful place that I just couldn't imagine living anywhere else. But like everything else, change happens. With natural disaster and invasives and having to reinvent ourselves and create a whole new style of living and earning money. It's a constant change, and we still have more change coming. Right now, there is the West Susitna Access Road that is being proposed by the state. There are gold fields to the west of us along the Alaska Range, and there's a proposal to build a 100-mile long road that will actually come within about a quarter of a mile of our farm if it's built. Good or bad, don't know yet. We came here to live remote. That will obviously go away with the road, but the jury is out on whether or not that is good or bad at this point. What is not in question, though, is that it will in fact have an impact, and what is going to be that impact, and how can we do that if it's going to happen? How can we do it responsibly? There's going to be a bridge built across the Susitna River. What impact will that have? We saw in our time, Susitna Landing was the only access to the river in this lower part of the river in the early days. Then Deshka Landing was built, and the traffic moved further and further out as those things came along. A bridge across the Susitna River on the lower end here will increase access for the public. Good for the public, but can be difficult for the environment and the surrounding area. So those things need to be, we need to be vigilant. We need to be on top of those things, and we need to decide whether it's good or bad, and how it can be done responsibly. So those are things that face us today, right now, that are coming at us. We continue to evolve tourism. We depended on people to come fishing and snow machining and dog mushing in tourism in the past, and now we are farmers, but we didn't give up the tourism. We have agritourism now, and with a road, that changes everything again. So I think that we can sum this up by saying that it's been an extraordinary ride. It has been anything but ordinary. And it changes every day. And I guess we thrive on those things. You agree?
Yeah. And you just keep doing what you got to do, or what you want to do, and make the most of what you have. And that's what we just keep doing. There's no place else we'd rather live. So this is where we're at.
So, do we still have anybody out there?
Do we have any questions? I think there's a couple of questions.
Yes, you guys do have some questions. So I'm going to read them out to you guys if you want to answer them. So the first question we have is, are any of your children interested in taking on your business at any point, or joining you guys out there?
All of them have been a little bit involved at different times. Whether or not somebody's going to take it over completely. Our daughter Megan works in advertising and marketing, so she ran our pack house for a couple of years, and so she's doing that now. So she helps a lot with that. Both of our sons last year, because of COVID, everybody was here. Our son Cody's in Anchorage, and he did all of our expediting.
He was our expediter.
So that we did not have to go to, usually in the summertime, we go back and forth or take turns going back and forth to Anchorage. He did the expediting. So we don't know. We're still evolving. We're looking at value-added things right now, which they're more interested in. So at this point, no, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And they're all probably watching right now and cringing. So, but they are all involved. All of us. It is a family operation, and all of our children are very much involved in what we do.
Great. That's cool to have them in all different aspects of the business as well.
Yeah.
Another question is, do either of you fly, or are you contracting all of your flights? How does that work right now?
Neither of us fly. Mike, at one point, before we ever even moved here, was taking flying lessons. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of friends who fly, and we always have, partially because of the military. But when we decided to move here and run the lodge, we literally sat down and crunched the numbers and said, if we pay somebody for 20 years to run a lodge and fly our clients, what will that cost? And what will it cost if we buy our plane and pay for the insurance and all that? And it came out cheaper to pay someone else. And not only that, neither of us love to be that pilot seat, and all the really good pilots that we know love to fly. So we decided that we would just hire that out. So most of our flying is done through air taxis from Anchorage, although we do have a lot of friends that we fly with on and off also.
We know a lot of pilots now.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of the philosophy, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
You build a nice airstrip, they'll show up.
Yep. A nice landmark.
And the lake too. The lake is a mile long and it has marshes on both ends. So anything that can go on floats can land on our lake. So we've met a lot of people that have just been doing touch and goes on the lake, and just, it's a beautiful place to land. And so we've met a lot of people being here too. Yeah.
So no, we're not pilots.
Nope.
Next question is, prior to peonies, did y'all have a garden out there?
We've always had gardens. We always had vegetable gardens for ourselves. We've always had lots of different flowers. Like I said, my family is peony. They have peonies. My dad and my grandpa were peony growers. So I still have some of their peony roots. So we have some in my special gardens, roots that are over 100 years old. And we still do high tunnels. We have the woofers here in the summer. So we have 3 high tunnels for vegetables. So we do a lot of our own vegetables and that kind of stuff. But we didn't have any. We don't sell anything besides peonies. Yeah.
But we've always raised some of our own food, and we did a lot of gathering.
And we have chickens also.
It was probably the biggest thing that we had was not being able to keep up with eggs.
Yeah.
So we got chickens for laying.
We had planned on we decided we were going to do chickens at first, and then maybe we'd get some sheep and for milk, and some goats maybe, and then sheep and goats for milk, and then maybe do some llamas
for backpacking, that kind of thing. But
once we moved here, we realized how many bears there were in the area, and we realized that we could keep chickens safe, but probably nothing else, and we weren't willing to go there. So we decided chickens was it.
Sounds good. So do you think it was just pike that ruined the fishing, or do you think that there were other factors in that salmon decline?
That's a loaded question.
There's other factors. There always is.
Yeah. I was, we were very involved. I was on the Mountain Yunlow Fish and Game Advisory Board for 6 years. I did 2 terms there. And, we had an opportunity in the mid 90s to get the pike issue under control. But I'm afraid it was just mishandled, misjudged. And
too little too late.
Yeah. And then once it happened, I think people really didn't think it would get as bad as it did. And so I think between the explosion of the pike and the denial and some of the policies that were in place, that it was a combination that created this situation. But I would like to say, though, that I do feel, though, that with our situation, we have an issue now, another invasive of Alodia, an aquatic plant that can take over the streams and lakes in the area. I think that based on our experience with pike, when Alodia came along, it's been a quick and decisive response from all involved: the state, the community, Tyonek Conservation District, Federal Fish and Wildlife folks. Everybody's come together quickly to try and get this under control, because I think we did learn a lesson on pike that if you procrastinate, your window is very short, and if you procrastinate, it's going to be gone.
A few more questions of, do you have an overland winter trail by snow machine?
We do. Um, we have a couple of different trails. We're actually the Iditarod National Historic Trail, one of, I think, 11 National Historic Trails in the U.S. It runs just a half a mile behind us. Now, it's a National Historic Trail in name, only or primarily, but we worked on that for a number of years. We worked with the state. We reclaimed quite a bit of it. We have to answer your question directly, though, we have a 47-mile long trail that runs from here to Deshka Landing, Willow, where we base out of in the wintertime. So it is a 47-mile overland trip.
Overland meaning over the frozen rivers and marshes and creeks and lakes. You would not be able to traverse it in the summertime when it wasn't frozen.
Strictly winter, but we do, and we haul. Our issue, of course, is that in the summertime everything has to come by airplane. And while weight is an issue, a bigger factor is the size of the door on the airplane. A lot of times the things we want to haul won't fit through the door. So it's a constant logistical game that we play. And I think that's where our military training for Paula and I came in, is that we have that logistics background. She was an air traffic controller. I worked personnel and logistics. And so we learned how to play that logistical game. And that's really important, whether you're farming or you're living in the bush, to be able to plan 1, 2, 3 years out. And whether it can come in the summertime or in the wintertime, and the expense of doing either, all of those things come into play. And I think that ultimately has been our strength in becoming peony farmers and raising peonies in the middle of nowhere and sending them to everywhere in the U.S.
Tomorrow, Mike is leaving here in the morning, and he's snow machining to Deshka Landing, and he's doing a haul load. So this time of year is the perfect time where a lot of stuff comes out. So anything chicken feed for the whole year, lots of bulk stuff comes out behind him on snow machine all winter. This time of year is this part of winter is the best part for hauling.
Yeah, just enough light and good snow.
Mhm.
So another question here, with regards to the West Susitna Mining Road, initial access is one thing to consider, and how that access will affect a remote resource. The biggest concern of ours, this is from Wilderness Place Lodge, is that in 10 years that might follow, as the state and county has a vague long-term plan, other projects in development will follow the road. I'm less worried about initial access, yet very concerned about the long-term impacts on the Susitna-Yentna ecosystem and the natural resources within. Can our development, expansion, and encroachment also be considered invasive, and how do we manage that? Good question.
Good question.
Yeah, and it's my question as well.
Yeah.
I am extremely concerned. You know, we've seen the examples of something like this. It can go really bad. And I think that most have good intentions, but it is going to be a life-changing event for many of us out here. And my concern at the moment is that the parties involved, you gotta have 2 mining companies that have deep pockets. You have the state of Alaska Industrial and Economic Development folks are kind of heading it for the state. And then you have the Matsu Borough. And they all seem to be in favor of it. But my concern at the moment is that those that stakeholders west of the Susitna River aren't being asked at this point, what are their concerns? And let me give you an example here on this, okay? Where we live here right now, there are things that we know that nobody else does. And there are people at Shell Lake and on the Talchalitna and in Squentna and in Rainy Pass and all these other places. They know particular things about the region, the habitat that nobody else knows. And they need to be involved in that. And I can give you an example of that. We have found artifacts here in our immediate area that date back over 10,000 years. Now, I'm not going to tell you where we found them or what they are, okay? But they're here, and there's more, and they can be impacted. We used to have a tremendous run of red salmon. They came up Alexander Creek. They went up Sucker Creek into Sucker Lake. They're gone. Pike destroyed it. They're completely gone. There are about 20 to 50 reds out of that massive run that still exist today. They're the remnants. This road threatens them. I'll tell you that much. I'm not going to tell you where they're at, but they threaten that. When the pike invaded the drainage, we were concerned about the salmon runs, but we didn't really think beyond that. When it happened, we immediately saw the impact. Bears used to migrate to Sucker Creek and feast for weeks on the salmon that came up that stream. The salmon are gone. They didn't know what to do. These are generations, who knows how many years that they had done that. All of a sudden it's gone. Eagles, wolves, all of these, the whole ecosystem was impacted, by it. And this road is going to do the same thing. And so we need to gain and we need to share as much knowledge as we can. And that means that these big interests that have a specific reason for wanting this road need to have a dialogue with us.
Yeah. And everybody who lives out that is, part of the stewards of the areas.
And just in closing on that, until they do, I will be skeptical. Come talk to me. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. I have another question from Wilderness Place Lodge. They say, great story and thanks for sharing. Since you have spent the time that you have in the bush, how has your perspective changed since day one? How has it changed you? What are the greatest values of living within the wilderness? And with that, how should wilderness places like your region be preserved and protected into the future? Another big one, multi-part.
Well, the first part I can tell you was something I was thinking of earlier, is that when we moved here, Mike had been in the military for 20 years. I'd been in for a shorter, but it was the biggest change was realizing that we had little power over our lives in many, many ways, that Mother Nature had much more control than we did. We really had no control. That's just a joke. So we had to learn how to go with the seasons and go with the tides. And if it's snowing, if you have a plan for the day and it's snowing, then you change that plan. We have a to-do list that everybody who lives out here that's a mile long, and you start on one thing. And for us, if something breaks and you're using that tool and you don't have any way to fix it, you need a specific part, that job gets set aside and you go on to the next job. It's a hard thing to do. You want to finish a job and have it done, but there's always things that are in different places, in different parts of doing things because of the having to learn to live with the flow. And that has totally.
It's liberating.
Yeah.
It's liberating. When we moved here, I took my watch off and I've never put it on since. I love being able to live on nature's terms by the seasons. Now, I don't get to do that all the time, but I'm sitting here talking to you over satellite internet in the bush. I don't want to be hypocritical about what we do. Times are going to change. The environment is going to change. All of these things, the tools. I can get online now, and that part that's broken that Paula talks about, I can get online and order it, and probably have it in Anchorage within a couple of days, where it used to take weeks in the past.
When we ran a lodge for years, and then now of course we have the farm. And one of the big things was because we were an outside lodge or a further out lodge, we knew that when people came here, they wanted to come to this type of an area. They wanted to come to a rural area. They wanted to come to the bush. They wanted to come to a log cabin. They knew they were having an outhouse, as do all of our woofers. And so my kids grew up, we were surrounded by happy people all the time because they were happy to be here. They were, when people are out and about and they don't have, and we always suggested to our clients at the time, take your watch off when you get here. There's no reason to go by that time. And you could watch people when we had clients that would come for a week or 2 days or 3 days or whatever, after about 24 hours, you can physically see them decompress because they're not hearing the phone ring. And we don't let our woofers have constant contact with internet. That's a very limited thing for them, so that they can still enjoy that experience. You don't have a phone ringing, you don't have a TV, you don't have things constantly at you. So to be able to really be out in nature and be in nature and do those things is a huge gift to so many people. So we've made everybody who had come out over the years, we've made lots of friends. We forever friends. We have friends all over the world because of that. So the way the nature and being out touches people individually in their heart is just an incredible thing to watch, and we love to share that.
It is. And we've made friends that this place that we live has become kind of magical for us. And I don't think it's anything cosmic, it's just the fact that we love living here. It's such a great place to be. And I think a lot of people have become detached from nature, from unplugging and those kind of things. But we've had a number of our friends that have passed away, and they've asked that their ashes be spread here on the farm because some of their best memories, their greatest times, were here. And that's pretty significant, that people want to be with you, or be in a place where they had such a wonderful time. Even though it could have been short, that those kind of things. So we are truly blessed to be able to live the way we live. We realize there are very few people that can do that today. And if everybody did it, then there wouldn't be a place for us, And one of the things I learned early on in the military was there's too many people living in places they don't want to be, doing things they don't want to do. And we never wanted to be that way. We always wanted it to be about where we live and what we do. And we wanted it to be satisfying. And I think in that regard, we may not be financially, we may not be rich, but we succeeded in that regard. For the future, I'm concerned for the future of people wanting to do the things that we're doing. Things like a road are going to encroach mining operations and such. But let me throw this out. One of the encouraging things that I see in Alaska right now is what we have done, and that's agriculture. Right now, 95% of Alaska depends on its food coming in from outside. Only 5% of what we consume is produced in Alaska. One of the things that this road will impact is,
Or
could impact is that right now the state says that there are 65,000 acres of land around us identified as suitable for agriculture. We have in the U.S., we have the Central Valley of California going back to desert. I think that's 500,000 acres of land that is reverting back to desert. They don't have water anymore. That is a major producer for the U.S. I think Alaska has the opportunity in agriculture to step up. I think as oil declines, I don't think we're going to be an oil state for much longer, to be quite honest. And I think that we need to diversify. And I think agriculture is an excellent industry that Alaska can step up to. And I think that the bush has a voice in that. I truly do. The microclimates that exist around Alaska will allow us to produce a lot of agricultural goods that people want.
And it's great for families.
It is. It truly is. And it will allow us to remain innovative and to stay close to nature if we do it right.
That's a great point, especially as things kind of warm up, as they might be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a great water resource here. Thinking about how that could be utilized in an agricultural context is really interesting. And a lot of really good soil in a lot of places too.
Yes.
But on the note of it's great for families, how do you think that your experiences have shaped your children as adults? living in a remote setting and having a hand in all parts.
That was always the big question. We really, as parents, we were very selfish in that we uprooted our kids and we moved them out to the bush. The boys, I think, were young enough that they just thought it was a great thing. Our daughter was 12 years old.
It was a little tough on her.
That was tough. I think the jury is still out.
I think the biggest thing is as our kids are all independent people who live in society and work in society, and every job they've ever held, they've been praised up and down for their ability to think on their feet, to do things, to work with other people, to work together, to whatever. And that's really what it is. When the woofers come here, we say, this is what we're trying to do. We all work together to do this, whatever that takes. So our kids grew up knowing that if I don't do this job, then my brother's going to have to do it, or my sister, or my mom or dad. So that would not be responsible. So it was very organic learning for them on how to work together and how to be responsible. And those traits have carried them all through their life and will go far. We have 3 that are college graduates, and one of our twins that is high functioning autistic has welding certificates. College wasn't right for him, but he has welding certificates, and
he's our field manager and our expediter. I mean, he's probably the closest as far as operating in the farm, and he could definitely, do most anything on the farm. He started from day one. He knows it inside out. I think.
And they're good friends. They're all good friends too.
And they're probably all watching, but I think that to sum it up,
story.
To sum it up, we're proud of them.
Yeah.
And as human beings, as individuals, and we all still speak to each other. Yeah. So I guess it's not all bad.
No, and I imagine that you guys have a sense of family that most people don't get. And I imagine that also fosters a great sense of confidence in a kid growing up someplace like that, and self-reliance, which is pretty.
That was our goal. If they can be self-reliant, 3 out of our 4 had little special learning needs, and if they could learn to do it on their own and be self-reliant, that was our goal. What else can you hope for your kids? Yeah.
And it makes for a great story. For them.
Yeah. Whenever they're someplace, they can. I grew up here. This is whoa.
Cool. Another question from Wilderness Place Lodge. They say one of our favorite short films is one called All the Time in the World. Have you seen it? And if you have, is that film an accurate account of the experience that your family has had off grid?
So All the Time in the World is the PBS with I'm pretty sure is the guy who lived out and did his cabin and stuff. No, that's not that. Okay, I don't know.
No, I don't.
I will write it down though.
Okay, great. Another. Oh, sorry. Did you guys have another?
Go ahead.
Okay. Another question is, can I come visit by ski tour?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, you can.
So and over the years, when we were still functioning as a lodge, we supported a number of races over the years. I did a sport, a number of dog sled races. We just retired just this past year from the junior Iditarod sled dog race. We were a checkpoint and a sponsor of that race for 21 years. And we just retired from that this year. That was kind of our giving back to the community. We felt, even though community loosely defined, but we have always had many forms of travelers show up here on foot, by ski, by bicycle, snow machine, dog team, airplane.
But that being said, our email address and our phone number is on our Facebook page and Instagram page and all that. So just get a hold of us and we can tell you about trails and make a plan.
Awesome. We have a question from someone on Facebook. Do you guys do a lot of hunting?
We harvest a moose every year. We qualify for a subsistence moose in the wintertime.
Well, it's tier 2.
And
Yeah.
that's what,
Yeah.
And so we put a moose in the freezer. We are still allowed to fish for pinks, silver, and chump salmon. And so we put a few salmon in the freezer as well.
When the kids were around, we used to do a little more hunting. We had more mouths to feed year round. But now we just pretty much one moose a year is what we have. Yep.
And Paula mentioned earlier that we have a very high brown and black bear population here. And so we kind of early on adopted the one-shot rule. And essentially that is a shotgun blast over the head if a bear came in, and if they left, good, but if they came back, they went into the freezer.
But since we built the farm, we have so much cleared land that the bears really don't want to be out in that open space. So we've not had to do anything like that since we built the farm, which is cool.
It's kind of interesting as well. Yeah. So I have a couple questions too. What was the craziest thing that you guys brought out that when you got there you wondered why you had brought it in the beginning?
That's a long list.
You know, when you live in society and you have all these things in your house and you're like, should I, we had a big garage sale before we came out. You're like, should I bring this? And it's like, well, you probably aren't going to need it, but you may need it. So why not? So yeah, we probably have a room full at least of things that never, ever have been used since we've been here. But I don't know, what's the craziest? I don't know.
We have a shed full of so much stuff. It still has the wrappers and the stickers from the moving company from 27 years ago. Yeah. I
can't even pick one. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of equipment that we brought out that we thought, eventually things will evolve and we'll use this, or, where you live, you have a toaster and you have a microwave and you have a waffle maker. Well, when we first moved here, we had a generator. So we didn't use anything electric unless it was necessary. So I'm pretty sure that we knew that we did not bring those things with us. But so everything changes, turning on light switches, all of those kinds of things change. So what your norm is totally changes, but it takes a while for that to sink in. So
yeah. I guess we brought out a bunch of fluorescent light fixtures that are still wrapped up.
That we thought we'd use in a shop or, in some place, but yeah. So
and
yep.
And they're not even used anymore anywhere. Nope. So
yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like you could have a flying garage sale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also you guys have a pretty robust social media presence. What was that transition like to go, from the two-way radio to being on social media, and was that a pretty seamless transition?
It took a long time. I mean, it's been a long time. When the kids were going to school, at one point we finally got dial-up internet, which is super slow. The kids called it that they were trolling the internet, and of course now trolling the internet means a totally different thing. They were talking about fish trolling. When Megan was in one of the funniest stories about computers and internet and connection, Megan was in India, and I'm sure she's cringing right now. She sent an email with a picture, and the title of the email was "Daddy, look what I did," and the picture took about 30 minutes to download. So very slowly, Mike saw a picture,
one line at a time,
of his daughter coming up, trying to figure out what in India what she was saying. Daddy, what did I do? And it turned out that she pierced her belly button. So Daddy was not very thrilled. But we finally got a really good picture of her very beautiful belly button with a piercing.
But it took 15 minutes for that picture to download. Social media, though.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been having fun with that. we've gotten to where
we quickly learned with most social media as far as our flowers that we had to, there was no choice for us to be able to do that business. We had to be on Instagram. We had to be putting those pictures out. Luckily, we did have Megan, who lived in Anchorage at the time and was, was up on that stuff because of the age, because we didn't know any of that stuff. But now we're to the point where, Mike's having fun with TikTok, and
we, of course, when we first moved here, of course, there was no digital cameras. So we were, taking film, sending it into town, being developed. So we didn't tend to do a lot of that. We did, but now, you got your phone, you take a video, you take a picture of everything. I'm to the point now where I want to carry two phones, because I'm listening to music as I'm out working or traveling on a snow machine. And I want another one just so I can take video and photos. So we document a lot. I have a lot of fun with it, because I know we live in a unique world, in a unique situation. A lot of people don't experience traveling up the Yentna River in a 30-mile-an-hour wind at 2:00 in the morning, on a snow machine. They don't see that, kind of thing. So you never know when something's going to happen. So we're constantly taking photos and videos. The digital age has been fantastic for us to document all of this stuff.
Speaking of documenting, since the day we moved here, we've taken weather readings every single day since we've been here, and Mike has written in a journal every single day since we've been here. So at some point, if we ever slow down, there's probably going to be a book or something that will tell some of these stories.
So, social media wise, like Paula said, we have to have it for the business. It drives a lot of our business. It's becoming even more important now since COVID. And
it's also a great way to keep in touch. All of the woofers that I talked about that are all part of our family that are running around the world, we all keep in touch via social media. I can see what they're doing. We can see. So it's really a lot of fun. It's made this much less, it's just Mike and I here now. It used to be 7 of us, 6 of us, depending on when, where the kids were or whatever. And it's just the 2 of us now, which is wonderful. We absolutely love it this time of year, but we never feel alone because we always have contact and fun contact and a choice of contact. We can turn off the phone when we want to.
So the social media, type, it drives our business. I think we have a pretty significant following that's going on now. Our daughter said we had to get on TikTok, so now we're on TikTok. We did that in October, and we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. And she says, you got to get on TikTok. And I go, I don't want to do TikTok. And she goes, no, you need to get on TikTok. And we did. And since October, we've picked up over 44,000 followers, the 1-minute videos. And living out here, there's all kinds of 1-minute videos you can do. So social media drives a lot of what we do today, quite honest. And that almost seems wrong, doesn't it? We moved out to the bush to live a simple lifestyle, and we're on social media every day. I don't know.
Human contact.
Well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. I think that's all we have for right now. I really, do you guys have anything else that you want to just add here at the end? Any last comments for everyone here?
Well, the only comment I have is you just never know why things happen. You just never know why things happen. The first day that we flew out to look at this place, you couldn't have possibly have guessed that what we were going to do and where we're at now. So sometimes you just got to take with the bad with the good and not call it bad. It's just life. The bumps and bruises and turns and twists, the pike and the salmon getting closed, it all changes. Life has changed. That's what life is. And if you can learn to figure out how to just ride that and understand that, then everywhere you're at is going to be good.
I just would like to thank you for the opportunity that you gave us. I hope that the people pay attention to the Susitna drainage of the Susitna Valley and the things that are going on here. It's provided us a life. we've spent more time here than we have anywhere else in the world in our entire lives. And this is home. This is, when I die, I don't want to leave here. You know, this is where I want to be. I don't know. I feel fortunate because I don't know that a lot of people can say this is where I want to be forever. And this is and I can. And so it's precious, not just for me because of what it's allowed me to have, but it's precious to the world. And we need to protect wherever it is, and we need to be responsible. And again, thank you. It's been fun. And I hope it's been somewhat entertaining or educational.
And we're looking forward to more of these.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Not us doing it, but watching other people.
Really
Yeah.
great, you guys. Thank you. You're inspirational. The comments here coming. I don't know if you've been seeing them all, but everyone's just been kind of gushing about how inspiring you guys all are. And this was a really great presentation.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And this will be available later. We're going to put it up on YouTube. So if anybody wants to watch again, and make sure to check out EagleSong's website and social media sites. They're great. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thanks for inviting us, guys. Have a good night. Did you want to?
Good.
Cool.
Enjoy your evening.
Yeah, you too. See.